All right, you guys, we are live. Welcome back to another Tuesday afternoon, at this point, evening, but the sun is still pretty high up in the sky, so you could be fooled very quickly. We have the one and only Matt Newman from iRod with us today. Super excited about that. Matt has fished, from my understanding, I would say everything. So it's really exciting to have you on. Because, I mean, we were just talking backstage about the bass fishery, and I'm excited to continue that into, the show, but also branch out into whatever you have coming, whatever, is coming in your life, but also iRod and just the excitement of fishing in general.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Welcome, Matt.
What's
Thank
up,
you for
Terry?
jumping on with us. Sorry, guys, I'm running a little late.
Yeah.
Traffic was crazy.
I know, now that the weather's beautiful, everybody's out nowadays.
Yeah, finally, right? Yeah. God, it took a while.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the longest breach from winter into something sunny I think we've ever had. It was bananas.
Yeah, that was getting to me pretty good. And it goes to 0 to 100 quick too.
I know. I just told you. I'm still in the shop right now, but I'm sweating.
Yep.
Bullets.
I am too.
I had to fill this up with water, and I've just been chugging water while I've been back here.
How's the week been so far for you?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just saying I've been at Casitas most of the week, trying to crack the code. It's tough. I mean, it's tough. You can catch 50, 60 fish a day, but catching a good limit it's so different. Like I watch Cody Kurz. Don't know if you know who he is, and he's been winning the majority of all the tournaments there. And he'll win on a Saturday, and he's very, very honest, and he'll tell me exactly what he's doing. I'm not a threat. I'm not there. The next weekend, he'll win again, and I'll go, oh, congrats. That same weird deal. I go, oh, no, and he's doing something totally different. Then next week, something totally different. So his what does Breakbo call it? His youthful energy has kept him chasing the bite. But for like us old timers, trying to find the new lure every single day is exhausting.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many.
There's so many. So yeah, I was
so
saying
many.
We caught like 60 fish today.
It's so easy to get wrapped up in what you've already been using and what is successful. Yep. I mean, the past year, I've had a ton of success on the 6-inch slug on a scrounger head. Like it was you're almost like, oh, if I throw this, I'm going to catch a fish. Guarantee it.
Not even catch a fish. I'm going to catch a good fish.
Yeah.
I'm going to catch a good fish and I'm going to catch multiple fish. But it's like, as a business owner, I have multiple things to market and, catch fish on and try and research and development and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, I got to pull myself off of this scrounger and slug bite, and then try and catch fish on other things. But I'm like, man, but they're just biting this.
I'm doing something similar, but not the same. So I'm stuck on a jerkbait right now, and I don't jerkbait fish too much, but I have our jerkbait rod. I got a bitchin' little 50 core on it, and I use one of those 110s, and it's so comfortable to fish. I'm not putting it down. People are like, dude, you gotta. I haven't caught a keeper, on the jerkbait, but I keep throwing it. And I keep there. What are you doing? And I go, I think I'm just enjoying the rig more than anything else. I enjoy how accurate I'm casting, how far I can cast. So I've got to that point. I don't mind. I'm getting bit every cast. They're just tiny, but I think that you go through stages. I've read some things where you go through stages of fishing where you're like, you want to find out how to catch a fish. Then you want to kind of catch the bigger fish. Then you want to, and you end up with, I just want to catch them the way I want to catch them now.
Yep.
And it was, I had 2 other people in the boat that were outdoing me night and day, but I stuck with that stupid jerkbait because it was just fun. I've been
out with Charlie where he was slamming them on the plastics, and I just couldn't put the jerkbait down.
Yeah, it's silly, and I'll get like that with anything. I mean,
it's funny that you bring that up because one of the first things that when I started talking to T, he would tell me, he's like right now you're just trying to fish, man, and it was just like I want to get out and I just want to fish, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm like fishing, and it's like I'm going for a purpose, right? I'm trophy hunting. I want a big fish. Like I want that fix for that day, you know? Like I want to feel a big one. So it's like, and figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
Because in the beginning it is like I just want to fish. Like it doesn't matter what I catch. And I was like, oh, this is not what I want. I want something else, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
You lost a jerkbait over the weekend, didn't you, Charlie?
I did what?
You lost a jerkbait over the weekend, didn't you?
I did.
A 110?
So yeah, it was a 110.
House.
We get to the ramp. Man. Matt, it was like the sickest boil ever. Like
where were you at?
insane. It was at
Okay.
Long Beach.
I don't even mind saying it. I don't think it's spot burning because I don't think it's really a spot.
You don't have to say it.
We're at the South Shore. We were at the South Shore launch ramp, and a bunch of stripers ran through. I've never seen them there before. I've never seen it before.
Oh, so here comes Charlie, all excited, right? I tie on the 110, and I'm
Charlie's
like
all pumped.
I'm all like, oh my god, they're boiling. So I throw my and I guess it just popped. I had a bad like a fray on my line or on the braid. You know, you've been fishing structure all day, right?
Every time I get excited, I backlash. I'll pull up the foamer and I'm like, okay, here we go. And I'm like running to the front, you know, and you're like, that rod's toast. I can't even fix it. Just digging. Like, what happened to your rod? It's dead. Don't even ask.
Yeah, man, but it was insane.
That's why you see so many guys fishing jerk baits on spinners.
It was me and Nick, SoCal Fishing Squad, and I was like, "Did you see that, Nick?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, grab your jerk bait. And I cast like once or twice, and I couldn't get it right.
Yeah. The
third one, I was like, I bombed it. I brought it in, and I could feel all the bait, right? Like I could feel the bait coming in. And then the second time, I guess I overpowered it, and it just flew off.
The adrenaline kicks in. You lose all technique.
Yeah, I lost an A-rig doing that the other day.
Dude, I've lost everything, dude. I was with Paul Bailey. I don't know if we have this on film. I was with Paul Bailey once, and we pulled up to a spot, and they started just chasing trout everywhere. And I was so pumped. I had a floating trout, and I heaved it out and just snapped it right off. And I'm like, oh, man, okay, well, let's go get it. And then a fish boiled on it. And you should have seen me. I'm jumping up and down, going, thinking it's going to make a difference. I'm going, hey. Trying to stop him. It boiled on it 3 times. I'm like, no.
Oh man, I'm telling you, like that's the second time, right? That's the third time that I see like some crazy like that, right?
Yeah.
The first time I was with Luke. We're actually we were chasing striper, right? Saltwater striper to be specific, and man, they were just like boom, boom. You know, striper pop hard, right?
Yeah.
Like when they blow, they blow.
Yeah, there's a sound to it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
And especially those big ones, right? It sounds like bowling balls dropping in the water.
Well, what's funny is what you're hearing is them just opening up their mouth and just all that water and potentially bait
sucking them in.
Mm-hmm. And they're so fast too.
The second time,
it doesn't sound like other fish.
Mm-hmm. Oh no! And the second time, we were in this little like lagoon, I guess you could call it. And just insane, man. But he was on his motor made too much. My friend's motor made too much noise. So by the time we cranked the motor up, they're gone. You know?
Yeah. Trolling motors don't work on stripers. We found that out too. It's weird.
Really?
The trolling motors will put them down. Big motors don't as bad. So like when we were fishing Castaic we fished Castaic a lot back in the day for stripers, the big ones. And it was Sean Bailey that taught me that. And he goes, you can be on the trolling motor and they just start busting. So you race over there and we're throwing like pencil poppers and they would go down. And he's like, it's the trolling motor. It's putting off some electric frequency. So he goes, just big motor right into him. And we just big motor right over to him. I'm like, oh, thanks, dude.
Well, a place like that, they're probably so used to hearing the big motors.
Yeah. And
the place motors. Charlie's talking about is a place where boats don't often go.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it. So,
Charlie, so where was that? Yeah, well, yeah.
It was over there in that place that I'm not there now, you know?
Yeah, it was just to the west, right over there to the west.
This is why I want a drone.
Let
I
me
just want
text
a
you,
drone
let
to
me text you
follow
the
people.
coordinates real quick.
Yeah.
But it was.
I'm gonna put a tracking device on you guys.
So you've been fishing casitas more?
Yeah, I've been fishing casitas. I had some people I had to take. Some clients were coming out, so I had to take them out, and I kind of wanted to get on it, and I hadn't been there a bunch, so I put some time in. I put quite a few days in there just to kind of figure something out, and I really couldn't. But I think it was the time. I think because all the other guys are struggling, even Cody. You could see, like, we were throwing the A-rig on the FFS, and you could see fish just peeling off of trees, and they would come 20 feet to the rig, they would turn off of it 10 feet, and then come back really fast. So it was exciting, like, oh my God, we're throwing the right spots, and you pull it over treetops, and you'd see all these fish just coming out of the treetop. They wouldn't bite. So
I've had trout do that, and it, like, every time they come running up, you're like, oh, this is it. I'm gonna get bit.
Mm-hmm.
Then they peel off. Okay.
They'll come back.
Here they come back. Yeah. And oh my gosh. And then you like get whatever you're throwing back to the boat, and you're like, I don't know how to handle myself. Like, I was just a roller coaster of emotions. Like,
I said the same.
I gotta breathe a little bit.
It's funny because we both, the guy I was with that day, we're both not like, I mean, I'm a fan of it, but I'm not like a student of FFS. And after like 3 or 4 casts, we were exhausted, screaming, pump it, all of this stuff. And I go, listen,
I love that.
I go, as much as we hate it, we just had 4 or 5 minutes of screaming fun. And if that wasn't here, we would have pulled the troll motor and said, fuck this spot, they're not here. And we would have left. And then we would have kept doing that all day. But instead, we were like, no, they're here. Let's go back to that spot. Oh, my God, how close was
that? Dude, so this Friday, we hit a corner, and I'm like, there's fish in the corner, guys. There's fish in the corner. Like, I'm catching fish in the corner. And we're like, no, we're leaving. I'm like, no, there's fish in the corner. Just go back to the corner.
It was a stupid corner.
Charlie's
I
the only
kept saying
one
that the whole
bit.
night. And we're like, I'm getting bit. And man, they were.
We were telling him too. We're like, Charlie, you're getting bit. We want to go catch something.
I mean, I caught a couple off the corner, but but
it's hard when all you're getting is short bites.
It's
short
bites,
You're like,
yeah. It's shorts. Now,
like, all right.
The one of the guys' wife, she sat in the back, and I gave her a 3-inch Kitech, and with a little 1/8 head. And she started catching shorts every single cast, every cast. I'm like, okay, she's happy with doing that. And then she catches a 2, 2.5, then a 3.5. And me and my buddy were like, what's going on? And so we both started staring at her, and she's casting it out, and then she just starts looking at the birds and stuff, but she never stopped winding. But she's just kind of, and the thing's penduluming down through like 12 foot. Where I go and look at us, we're like rocket pitching right between the bush, and I'm like, woo, swimming it out. I'm like, we're never getting deeper than 4 foot, and that was a big difference, right? That was an eye opener. But they stubborn me. I go, well, let her have them all. I'll just keep trying to figure something else out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. But the man will figure it out. But she had us 5 to zip. But,
when the answer's slowing down, that's a hard thing sometimes.
It was slowing down, but it was getting down. Like, that's the problem. Like, we could still fish a winding bait, but I wanted to fish visual. I was fishing treetops, and like, we're getting bites, so it's hard to stop. But she was just she must have been sinking out because she was snagging a little bit more too. So she must have been touching those 12-foot trees. But that's where they were keepers. They were 2.5, 3.5 pounders. And I know, there's big fish.
Hey, and I'll take a day of 2-3 pounders.
Yeah, me
all
too.
Day.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be fun.
I'm just happy to catch fish.
Yeah, no, and even the shorts, I just said that too. It's like, when you make the bitching cast with a jerkbait and you just go twitch, and it goes dump, and you're like, and it's a short, but you're like, It's that middle of the moment. I knew it. I told you.
It's when they're acting like fish, or when they're like, they're acting how they're supposed to act. You're like, that's where that should be. If there's not a fish there that's not biting, I don't know what else to do, because there should be a fish there. I'm going to act in this way to get that. And when you actually do, when it finally just it succeeds and you like
it's
get
the
that
best
bite,
feeling ever.
It's rewarding. It's rewarding. You're like,
it makes it all worthwhile, right?
Well, that's why we do it, because now it feeds our ego, right? We're like, we were right. All my studying and research proved me right.
All my notes.
And then we were wrong.
Played it out.
I knew it.
Yeah, but then we're wrong, and we have to try 20 times harder to prove ourselves right, though.
Oh, don't we, dude? We're stubborn. We are stubborn creatures, but it keeps us going back. That's it. You keep going back. And
okay, they weren't there, so the next tree. They have to be at the next tree.
Mm-hmm.
But it does feel cool, right? Like when you're like fishing, and we're all together fishing, and it's like, man, I'm gonna just throw something, and you figure it out. You're like, guys, get on this quick.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah, I always remember I took a trip to Margarita with 4 of my buddies, so 4 boats. We were all camping up there, and we went up there and for 2 days just to swim bait fish. Not one of us was going to throw anything but big swim baits. So the first day, all of us blanked. Pretty humbling because that lake's been really good to us. And then the second day, so let me give you a precursor too. So that whole week coming up to that weekend, it was hot and the fish were spawning. And then Friday it started raining and it got really cold. Saturday it mellowed out. Didn't get hot, but it mellowed out. And Sunday was nice too. But so the fish went to the beds, and then I think they went, can't do this. So the second day at about noon, I was fishing at depths 250, and I was halfway in and just was like, I hate this cast. And I literally like turned to sweep it and burn it in, and it stopped. And I'm like, I got one. And I was so happy I got one, right? And I'm jumping up and down.
It's funny. You know how many times you do that, right? You're like, I hate this cast. And like, you probably missed the fish, right? Yep. Like, it was probably a good cast.
Well, that's a whole nother discussion. We'll get into that one. But where's I going with this one? I forgot where I'm going now. Damn, sorry guys, just spaced on where.
So you hooked into the big fish.
So I hooked a fish. It was like 6-7 pounds. I'm like, all right, I felt so good to get one. So then I put it in the well, and I jump up and I make a couple more casts, and I'm fishing the depths like you do, and then I'm like, oh man, I'm never gonna get another one. I'm like, wait a minute. I was burning and sweeping that one, and I'm still winding it. And I go, I wonder if there's something to that. I'm having this full internal chat with myself, because you slow roll the
as every fisherman does.
Yeah, so I think, all right, they're eating the depth, so I'm doing it right. Slow roll, twitch, glide, all this crap. And then I'm like, oh man, that fish ate it when I was trying to recast. So I literally just swept it across my chest, and it stopped. And I'm like, got another one. So, in short story now, in 10 minutes, I probably caught 8 fish on this one bank. So I jump in the boat and I drive right over to the closest friend I see, a mile or 2 away, and he's throwing a depths. And I go, dude, I figured it out. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, we're all pretty bitter. And I go, no. I had my girlfriend with me at the time, and she's like, he whacked him. And he's like, come on, guys. So she reaches in the well and pulls an 8-pounder out. She's like, he's got a whole bunch of them in here. And he's like, when I go, rip the depths on your next cast, because he's still fishing as we're gliding next to him. I'm gonna rip it over that point. And he casts it and he rips it and he gets an 8. And he turns to me when that thing stops. He goes, are you kidding me? And I go, it's night and day. And it was amazing. It was absolutely. We whacked him that afternoon, and we would have blanked. Same bait. Just had to sweep and wind. It wasn't even a burn. You had to really sweep it. So like bum, 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 bum.
So yeah, I think this is a good time to bring that. Uh-oh. Go for it.
Okay, Charlie. No, go ahead. You're eager.
No,
I was just having this.
Go for it.
Are you joking? Are you joking with me?
No, I'm not. Go for it. Go. I'll wait.
I was just having this conversation with a buddy of mine who was like, "Hey, how do you know when to change your bait? Like, you're just not getting bit. Is there a time frequency that you're like, all right, every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes?" And I was telling him, I was like, honestly, I'll change my cadence 15 times before I'm like even thinking about changing the bait. Yep. Yeah,
and then I'm like, you're notorious for not changing your bait.
But then you change your bait, and then you're wondering maybe it was a timing thing, and the last bait I had was the right bait, and it might turn on at 12 o'clock, and now you're a fisherman.
Yeah. There you go.
And that's when you start practicing insanity.
You know what's funny for me is, like, obviously changing when you're not getting bit, right? Like, what are they biting? But the real thing that starts coming to my head is when I'm getting bit. Like, well, what can I change this to get more bit? Now you're screwing with the bite. Yeah,
or
exactly.
Bigger ones, right? Or weed out the little one. What can I throw to get the bigger one, right?
I'm getting bit. Can I get bit better, or am I going to screw this up?
Mm-hmm. I think in my older age, I've learned to really simplify. Really simplify. Like, there's thousands of swim baits out now, and people go like, "Have you tried this one? Have you tried this one? How about this one? What do you think of this one?" And I go, "They're all tools. I don't need 15 Phillips screwdrivers. I don't need 15 flatheads. Maybe I need a short one and a long one, maybe a medium small one. But
what the hell am I doing with this 200-piece toolkit?"
I know, Luke. I was thinking the same thing.
That's a tackle box. not your swim. So, like, I only keep. I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, but I only keep probably 6 in the boat every single day, and it's a plunker, it's a slow HUD, a fast HUD, a big glide, a medium glide, a ginormous glide. I tried it, and a triple trout. And I tried it. That's it. Like, I can vary enough off of those baits. Now, the baits I've chosen, I have other ones here, in storage, but I have the ones, like, I have a Gangcraft. I love the Gangcraft because they can make really, really wide sweeps, but you can't. You can overfish them. So if you have to fish fast, that's not the bait. It doesn't work fast. It works really. It's great for just finessey fishing more than anything else. A depth can be fished really fast. The DS Customs, I've really grown into those. I think they're just pretty universal, and both sizes cover a lot. Size is important for pulling power, I think, a lot of the time. It pulls fish further, and that's important. But I try to simplify it, so I've learned to simplify it so I'm not spending too much time changing baits. And I'm not like we're fishermen, so I've overthinked. I've overthought. I overthink everything way too much, and so and then I see, like, you look at, like, Justin Kerr, Brent Ayler, they're very, like, methodical anglers. I try to learn from those kind of guys. Like, me and Justin Kerr are very, very different. Like, my head's bouncing around. We'll pull up to a foam or a yellowfin, and I'm losing my mind, screaming, "This is awesome!" And he's, like, falling asleep, making a cast. But so he's not. I'm bouncing around topics here, but he's very mellow, and he's very, like, controlled about his fishing and about his bait selection. He's not a spaz. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, he's not like, it's got to be this popper with a blue back. It's got to be the chartreuse tail. It's got to be this. It's got. He simplified it, so he's like, okay, if they're moving fast or moving slow or they're moving deep, shallow, like, he simplifies it and then makes it work, because we give fish way too much credit. We really, really, really do. So yeah, that's what I've tried to do as I've gotten older. Or at least as I've been fishing more. I try to just simplify. You can dial it in later, I guess. Like, I've gotten to certain bites where, like, I've gotten to sea bass bites where I found that they were only using the top column, and so we were throwing baits. I was throwing 3/4 ounce swim baits, and you catch 1 or 2, and you're like, why are we dropping through these guys so fast? We need to stay. So I start customizing and putting foam into things to slow it down. And that will help. But I started off simply, and then when you get on a bite, you can maybe try to dial it in so that you're not having to hold your rod up here to keep that heavier bait where it needs to be. Because you can make anything kind of work, not anything, but you can do the wrong thing and make it work, and then you kind of refine it. So I probably lost you guys and all of that, but
no,
nope,
not at all.
I'm fully right there.
Yeah,
I'm super smart, and I get all of this.
All right, Luke. Well, I'm going to walk you through this.
I understood it all.
Sure you did. My biggest issue is is that downsized? Because I go through my tackle and I go, oh, I want a little bit of this. I want a little bit of this. I want 10 of these. I want 4 of these. What if I happen to lose every one of these? Then I'm going to need 40 of those. And then it's like, I'm on a kayak with 80 pounds of tackle. And I'm like over here struggling to paddle my way to the docks, to any location that I need to. And I use the same lure all day. I didn't even change.
Oh
So
my God,
hearing you talk about dialing it in and then just saying, when you were talking about going fast, slow, deep, and shallow, I was like, oh, that's a great way to look at it. Like, all right, let's get 3 lures for shallow, 3 lures for deep, and then, top, low, whatever, fast, slow.
And then, like you say about stocking, like I've put a lot of thought into that, and I try to only stock the stuff that you are really going to lose a lot of. Drop shot weights, worm hooks, worms. I don't lose glide baits. I might bring 3 12 HUDs and 1 5 HUD because I'm never going to lose a 5, but 12s get stuck. So I bring extra 12s. So I think of it. I bring 1 punker. So now at home, of course, you got your closet full of stuff. So God forbid you lose, you know where to go. But I hate all that crap in the boat too. And my boat's full, but I eat too much. You end up, I watch guys in the back of my boat, co-anglers my whole life. And I watch those guys spend more time retying than fishing. And I'm like, bro, you guys, you're stressing yourselves out trying to match what I'm doing. What you had was perfect. Just hold it there. Just leave it there. So
unfortunately, I still am like, I'm still trying to figure stuff out,
Yeah.
So it's like I take a lot of stuff, I just want to be ready for whatever. But most of the time, we end up just using lead heads and plastic tails, right? Nothing
so
else.
Stupid,
like I never touch the crankbaits, which I want to throw, but I never do. Right? And it's like, I just want to be ready with everything. And sometimes
that was
you're
one
right,
of the
man.
last trips we were on. He was, I should throw a crankbait. I'm like, just shut up and throw the crankbait then.
Yeah.
But it is true, man. It's like sometimes just take less, and you stress less, right?
Yeah, you do, and then you're stuck with what you have, and you'll make it work. We make it work. We'll find the fish.
Always.
We try to always. You'll find it. But we make it work.
But if I'm short pounding, it's very different, right? I'll take 3 swim jigs and that's it.
That's just what we can fit in our pocket.
It'll
just be easier that way.
I like to go the opposite. I keep one bag's worth of stuff. That's it. But I want to bring 12 rods. I'm bringing rods like we're going on a 10-day.
I always thought of, because I used to do I shore pounded tons and tons, and I used to do a lot of swim baiting from the shore. And I always used to think I need to invent like the perfect backpack so you can just pull out the glide bait, pull out the HUD, have them all back there.
That sounds like a great idea.
I feel like that would get a little difficult to.
Oh, it'd be a nightmare.
To potentially cast.
Or maybe if you
but
had
like
a bow and arrow kind of thing, so it's sideways.
Yeah.
On the side.
Then you can.
And then the side that you don't cast. Yep. So what? So
Charlie, no, this is your turn.
This is gonna be me because I want to know how iRod began, man. How did it start? Where did it come from? How did it come to fruition?
So let's see. They started off originally. I had this guy Kevin, and he owned a company that was a muskie company, the muskie rods. And he reached out and said, your name's been dropped a few times. Would you be interested in doing a signature swim bait rod? I can make them, but it would be for bass. He was trying to break into the bass market. So I don't know if you guys ever remember that, the Matt Newman fig rig rod. We did 3 different models, and they did really well. And then
and what company was that?
It was called Fig Rig.
Okay.
It was back in Minnesota. So then he, after about 2-3 years of it doing pretty well, he called and said, I'm retiring. Why don't you do your own company? And I said, I don't think anyone really wants a Matt Newman drop shot rod. And he said, I'm not talking about signature, just start your own rod company. And I said, I'm really not sure how. So he walked me through like how to blueprint a rod. It took a while, but like how to blueprint what I want on a rod. with like how to communicate all the specs to the factories. So I'm not just saying bendy here, stiffy here, all of that stuff. So
that'd be me.
yeah. So that he taught me that, and then it was off to the race. I used his factory first off for the first run, which I wasn't entirely pumped on. They were good rods, but not like what we have now. And then the second run, I sent my money over, and they closed the doors on me, and I lost my money.
With your money?
Oh my God!
Yeah. So I was then. This is where it gets weird. I was then complaining to one of my best friends who owns Picasso, Dan. And I was just telling him how I fucked up. I probably should have gone to Korea, even though I have no contacts there. I think that's where all the better stuff is made. And he says, this is where it's silly. He says, "Oh, I know a Korean. He sources hooks for our lures. So here's his email." So I got nothing to lose. So I sent him an email just saying, "Hey, my name is Matt. Do you know rods?" And he writes back, "Rods are my main business. I did hooks on the side." So he says, "Let's get together next week." So perfect. I sent him my address. He had my address, but I sent him my Skype address at that time, thinking we'll have a Skype meeting. And he then calls me on my cell phone that day we're supposed to have that meeting. I'm like, "Oh, he's calling me without Skype. Okay, it's his bill." I answer it, and he goes, "I'm out front in a sedan. Can you take me back to the airport, or should I have him stay?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll what?" And I look out the window, and there's a sedan. So at the time, I live in a little studio, had like, bamboo floor, like bamboo rug, like it was very simple. And so I go, "Oh, yeah, okay." So he walks in, he looks at me, he goes, "Oh, I like it. And we sat cross-legged on this rug for 12 hours, pouring over all these samples that he had brought. Literally, this is how it started, in a studio bedroom. On the floor, on the rug, between the two of us, just passing rods, going, "I want this, but can you change this? Can you do this?" And that's how it started. And then the samples came like 3 weeks later. I drove him back to the airport. He flew back to Korea, and then that's what he came out for. We're really tight now.
He would just. I mean, just to think about like the amount of luck to go, "Oh no, I just do hooks on the side."
It's so random. Yeah, you couldn't have written that, and no one would have believed you if you'd written it. Like how silly that was. And then for him to fly out on like, who am I? Yeah. So it was started off on a really good, trustworthy foot, and then it blew up. And then when I started asking questions like, well, I pull out my GLXs. That's all I fished was Loomis before. And I go, "Well, how do I make something like this?" And he goes, "Okay, well, what do you want?" I go, "I want the best graphite." What would it cost? I was curious because this is a $600 rod. And he said, "Well, I want the best graphite, best handle, best guides. Just what would it cost to make the biggest FU rod?" And he gave me the number, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, like this?" And he goes, "It's the same graphite. We source the same Toray from the same factory that Loomis does. They're the same guides. We're premium foam, and they're Fuji reel seats. That's the air." And when I got the price, I'm like, "Well, I can retail these at $250. What?" And I realized that there's a 600% markup on these things, on all the rods. So don't let that fool you. Our air, I promise you, I really promise everyone that it is the best of everything that I could pick. And I can sell it for $249. There's still plenty of profit. Not plenty, but there's a margin in there.
Sounds like a fishing company right there.
Yeah. But yeah, now everyone can have them. Like you don't need to be $600 a rod. Like this, it's silly. So it was fun, bridging that, and that's how it all came by, and then it steadily it grew. Fred Rabanis jumped on really early, and that was a good kick in the beginning.
I mean, 20 years later, look at you now.
Yep.
You were talking about having all these baits, and I was like, man, I wonder how many just slightly off rods that you're like, well, this is now mine. I guess I'll use this one. Oh, I guess this one's mine.
But I could take it a little further. I could take it a little further and say, I mean, Dude, how cool is it to see like the face of the person who created this, right? Usually you don't see that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
see a rep, right? You see
Yeah.
a rep.
Yep.
Dude, Matt,
That's it.
I've seen you at shows. You hand deliver stuff. Like that speaks volume, you know?
Yep.
Like,
Yep. Thanks, man. I
yeah, for
appreciate
sure,
that.
man.
Yeah, it's
to
it's
get
real.
into the marketing side of business and now where we are, that is what is going to be the next step in the next marketing with how everything's going
Yep.
with media and all that stuff. It's those smaller little hi, how are yous, those conversations, and then just that face-to-faceness that
It
will
gives
build and
Yep.
last a company.
People are always shocked when they call and I'll answer, "This is Matt." Someone for warranty. They go like, Matt, the owner. And I go, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, well, that's weird."
that's pretty
Well,
cool, man.
I never want to name out a company, but I'll.
You should
You
though.
don't
Do it right
see-
now.
No.
You don't see the owner of such and such hanging out in the Bob Sands booth at the Fred Hall show.
No. And I'm so grateful all of those opportunities too. Actually, I've got such a good rapport with my dealers. It's really it is.
I think
really
that's
neat.
where I first met you, was at the Bob Sands booth.
Yep. So yeah, no, I've been doing that for 3 years now, I think, with Bob Sands.
That's cool,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. So we haven't had our own booth at those shows before because it feels weird. I'd rather just go support the dealers that supported us all year. So and eventually we will probably have a booth and we'll just walk everyone to there. But I don't.
Well, you guys had one for the last show that you guys were at, right?
Kind of. Yeah, we did, but it was sponsored by Eric. So Eric's Tackle, yeah, he was like, "Hey, we're doing the Ventura show," and I'm like, "You think anyone's going there?" He goes, "Got you a booth, you're in." And so we were all kind of like, we had a meeting the night before after setup, and he's like, "Man, if we can just break even, I would be so stoked." And we were like, "Oh, do you think we could break even? Because he's got quite some money into that show." And it was epic. It was the best show I've ever had.
Yeah, you guys did really well, man.
It was crazy cool.
You guys it was busy I was there 3 days.
You guys were definitely on the cool kid side.
Oh, was he in building 1 then?
Yeah, he was.
He was like in the center of building 1.
Yeah, we had it right by the door, and it was all against the wall, so the traffic had to like come right off that wall, and we think like fish here. The current was sweeping them right into the bank,
right into that corner.
But it was, and I had you
where the rapids were,
and Daniel. Everyone was working. It was so like relatable, and at one point it was cool. I stepped back and I should have videoed it, but I stepped back and all 5 of you guys were all busy with groups of people, and there I just see rods flying everywhere. It was really cool.
Yeah, so people tugging on iRods all day.
Yeah, it was cool. It was neat to see. It was the first time we've ever done thing in, I guess, our hometown too.
That's pretty cool, man. So then it transitioned into that salt. Then you transition into the salt, which brings the coastals, right?
Yep. So what happened first? So then I was fishing full time, and then the tournaments. I took a break. I decided to take a break from the tournaments with all of the restrictions on moving boats around, and it was just like, I need a break. I'd done it for 35 years straight, hardcore. That was my living, and then so then I got invited to go. Oh, someone said, "Hey, this."
Oh, so you were full-time employed off of tournaments?
Yes, full time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like the team tournaments mostly too. I can't say I was killing it in the pros. I was getting checks, but the team tournaments was my.
You weren't having to work a 9 to 5.
No.
Which is still impressive.
It's stressful. Yeah. It got stressful, which is why I started iRod too. Like I need something on the side. That was my thinking. Is like I need a side business if I have bad tournament years, and it just kind of flip flopped. So yeah, then I got invited. I found out. Then someone called me and said, "Hey, there's bluefin 2 miles off the beach," and I'm like, "There's no way," because I used to fish tuna when I was way younger a lot. And so I went with him in his little 12-foot aluminum, and we caught the shit out of him. So I was like, "This is too cool." So I went and bought a 15-footer. And that summer we didn't know what we were doing, and we couldn't go wrong. It was silly. Like, let's catch the marlin today in 5 minutes for catching marlin. So that was a fun year. Then the next year,
that's the opposite of me. I try to do the most. I do the most planning. I watch the most YouTube videos I could ever watch, and then it's just, not my day.
We were boobs. I mean, we literally were like, let's go out 10 miles. That's a good number. And then I'm not, all right. So I'm with Sean, and he goes, so what are we looking for? And I go, kelp. We're so green, right? We're looking for kelp. So we're driving. He goes, right there, bro. And there's a piece of kelp this big, right? And I go, no, like kelp. And he goes, oh, all right. So we're driving. He goes, well, there's a piece of kelp. And it was like a branch of kelp this big. I'm like, no.
You're looking for patties. You're looking for those big patties,
right? But we're bass fishermen. It's hard to explain a patty. So I go, no, it's like we need more than that. And he goes, well, look, there's another piece and another piece. I go, well, shit, that's like 10 little pieces of kelp. Let's stop here. That's good. The bait hit the water and we're bit. And we ended up catching limits of 60 pounders out of a 15-foot boat. And then we did it every day. Every day. We were such boobs.
Hooked.
We didn't have no science. I was hooked. So then I bought the whaler, and I was fishing the Tanner bank in my whaler. That's how like
you were going what's Tanner, 80 miles out?
88 miles in a 17-foot Montauk. And then when I would
with extra gas tanks on it.
Extra tanks, and then I would pitch a dome tent on the front of the boat, and that's where I'd sleep. And it was orange, and people were like, it looks like a pumpkin blowing down the ocean. There's just an orange ball on the water.
I used to work with a guy named Todd that used to do that.
Oh gosh. Todd, what's his last name?
I can't remember his last name, but
I know it's Todd.
It's the same guy with a whaler.
Yeah, and he builds them up with the pilot house. He builds all his boats.
Yeah,
yep. Crazy.
Same guy.
Oberhaus.
Yeah, we used to work together, and
he's
there
awesome.
you go. That's his last name. And I'm like, what do you mean you're going out to Tanner Bank and sleeping on your boat? So I put a tent on the front of it. I'm like, what?
He's still doing
like a buoy out there.
He's still out there, 16-footer.
Oh yeah, I ran into him at the Ventura show. I hadn't worked with him in like 10 years, and he's got videos of him surfing the pilot house.
Yeah, dude, he's a different breed. He's a different breed. That guy. Yeah, that guy's salty. So
my cousin will do all-nighters for white sea bass at Catalina and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just
I love it.
Tie it around their toe, fall asleep, kind of thing.
I love it, man. I love being out there, especially when you're with like 3 or 4 or 5 of your other boat buddies.
Mm-hmm. It's so much fun.
It's a good. I remember you're out
those
that far.
Those are the kind of trips that last, memory-wise. Like you're like, remember that one trip where it was super cold, somebody forgot their sleeping bag, and we all had to cuddle together because there was just we weren't prepared.
Gary just did a trip like that where they were right, Luke. They were they went to
the mothership
trip,
boat, and then they paid off all the bass boats. We've always talked about as a kid. I've always wanted to do that. So I think that he might have something there. Like you could hold more tournaments. Cool. You could have like a circuit built off of that almost, where it's a boat way in. It's kind of cool. But moving along, trying to think. So then after that, I was fishing Daiwas in the ocean because that's all I had. I'm like, man, I feel weird doing this. So I had the factory build me some of my own rods. I didn't want to get into the ocean market, but I wanted to fish iRods. And then they designed these rods. I'm like, dude, this is killer. So we went with it. So we had I call them inshores, but they're really offshore rods. That was the first line. It was like the 7.6s. And then I did all of the 8-foot calico rods. And then I met T. And T, that was quite a few years into it, but T kept telling me, man, you should get into the spotted bass. There's a huge market there. And I could see it, but I didn't, it wasn't my world. I've never caught a spotted bass. So I probably bucked at that idea for 2 or 3 years. Jeez. And then it was a long time. And then finally he was like, what is it going to take? Oh yeah, you know what? Let's just do a couple of rods. So I did a couple of rods, and it was insane. Do you remember that? Were you at the Fred Hall when we introduced them? Where
I probably wasn't.
I wasn't.
It was like how long ago? Maybe it was like 2 years before COVID. And
but I've heard the story.
I was just about to ask,
dude. I pretty humble, and you see like certain lures get like a line down the alley. You're like, oh man, I wish I could do that. Dude, we had 3 stores selling those rods. It was Save On, Performance, and Turners. They all three of them had those rods, and there were lines the way down around and down. I go, what? That's for our rods? Like, I couldn't believe it, man. And we just got in a massive shipment that should last me 5 months, and I was racing
I
back.
think that was my
every
first
day.
Fred Hall show.
Yeah, and here's me every day walking in with a stack of rods. They're like, Jesus Christ, and I'm like, it's unexplainable. And T is a marketing monster. I give it to T. Poe. Jeremy Poe was crushing it. James Collin, he was early too. And between that group and what T put together, it was very eye-opening for me, because I'd never had a reaction like that in 15 years of doing bass rods. You know, we've done well. We've been best sellers at Tackle Warehouse and all of that, but to see that kind of local reaction was like, what did you do, T?
Well,
it was awesome.
Well, and there's also
the cool
right,
thing
like,
about it.
There's the fact
You're
that
saying, Luke?
as a spotty community, no one had done anything to make them feel catered to.
Yep.
Thank you, Luke. It's exactly where I was going with it, because now that fishing as a whole has gotten more popular in general, you start seeing a little bit more catering to niche areas.
Yep.
But that's what California and a little bit down into Mexico. That's the only place that you're going to find these.
I mean, I can imagine you can relate, right, Matt? Like in the freshwater scene, it caters a lot to certain things, right? Like everything has a rod for everything, right? Like
everything.
It's crazy.
I was just listening.
Everything.
I was just listening to your last podcast with Nick, and you're like, "Yeah, we have 40 different rods in this one set, but now we got a frog rod. Now we have a rat rod to add," and you're like, "I guess we got to add those."
The short frog rod, the long frog rod. Oh my God. Oh, it doesn't stop. I mean, I've been in the 18 years, and it's every day. We've got so many new rods coming. I sometimes surprise myself. How do we keep coming up with so many new rods? We've got a whole new line of composite rods I've added. That seems to be the biggest ask. They want slow tips. So we got from medium lights to triple X's or double X's. We've got that whole line coming.
When you say slow tip, are you referring to a glass tip?
Yep. Yeah. So it'll be composite. So it'll be glass.
Yeah,
tip.
That's my favorite thing in the world.
Everyone says it, and our rods are very, they're all Toray graphite, so they're pretty quick, forgiving, but they're quick. So we got that adding to it. We've got a bunch of coastals, some new coastals coming. Fly rods, crappie rods, trout rods.
Right. No, you didn't have fly rods at the Ventura show, huh?
No, I didn't have them there. But
you had the surf rods to show.
Well, no, the surf rods are selling, but we had the trout and crappie rods.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
We had those, and that was another one of those moments. We had that rack with just the prototypes on it, and people walking up, and so people would walk up to the bass rack, and you would have to talk to them for 10 minutes to kind of make them feel good about what they needed. People are walking up to that trout rack and going, "Yeah, do you have 3 of these?" I'm like, they're prototypes. So that's going to be big. I mean, it's been the number since that show. It's been the number one asked for thing so far. So
we have 2 questions. One, you don't have to answer, but potentially I'm just going to ask you. One of the questions was, how much does the tournament that you were doing, the full-time tournament, like income look like? You don't have to answer that one if you don't feel comfortable doing it.
Oh, sure. Well, it's very sponsor driven. So I was one of those guys that was doing more work for the sponsors than most. Like, I was traveling full-time the country, doing seminars for mainly Picasso or True Tungsten. Sorry, it was True Tungsten at the time. So those, and then I designed, I don't know if you remember the True Life swim baits. There was a whole line me and Ish did. There was bluegill, shad, trout, little trout, big trout. It was a whole line of swim baits we did. So, and we got commissions off of those. So I did really, really well with that for a long time. And then Mark Mendez at Bass West would give me, his sponsorship was to give me a couple of pages in the magazine so I could sell those to companies and get that money. I had you gotta kind of be creative. Like I
So
said,
it was
like,
more like, so it's like affiliate marketing, like how it is, right? Like, was it like that?
but there was no social media really
That's what
during
I'm
that
saying.
whole
It's
time.
kind of like
Yeah, so
affiliate marketing,
So
right?
you had to get really creative with it.
yeah, like yeah. So I, let me have 2 pages for my sponsorship, and then I can turn them into $2,000 a month. And so it costs him 2 pages, and it pays my salary. So to answer your question, on the good years, I could make $100,000. And then on the bad years, I was doing 35 grand probably. So there's some highs and lows. Yeah, but
that's got to be a ton of work, just day in, day out.
I loved it. Now it would kill me. No way. But I would wake up and not know where I was. Like I was at what state, and it would take me 5 minutes to figure out what airport where am I? Like I would nonstop, and I loved it. I'd be in Texas, and then he'd call, "Are you still in Texas?" Like, yeah. He goes, "Can we just fly you to Florida for another show?" I'm like, "Sure." I didn't.
no buts, just go.
I didn't. I didn't have any commitments, so it was living the life at that period. And then, like I said, then the iRod started get going, and my tournaments really started suffering. I think what it was is everyone was getting really good. So when I started pre-fishing, I would show up to a lake 5-6 days before, and there'd be nobody there, nobody. And then maybe at the end of the week, like have you been to Clear Lake and the docks at Clear Lake? I would show up 6 days before, and there wouldn't be another boat in there until the day 2 days before at the most. Now I go there. You can go there 8 days before. You won't get a spot. You can't get a dock. It's
people are just more serious about it.
Dead serious. Yeah, I mean, I got called a cheater in a tournament that I won because I pre-fished. So he was like, "You cheated." And I'm like, "How did I cheat?" Because you were here 2 days this week. And that was a speech I gave back then where I said, "Well, you've got a wife, a kid, and a house, and a good job. And I don't have any of that. So you can't have it.
Have to work."
Yeah. So I said, you can't.
What's
you
funny?
can't have all of that and win tournaments. There's no way you're gonna have. So it's mine.
We used to hold a family trout derby, like just uncles, cousins, kids, all that stuff. But my dad and I would go up an extra day just because we had that schedule. All of our uncles got cousins got super mad at us for pre-fishing. They're like, "Oh, you knew what was working." I was like, "We also told you guys what was working. We pre-fished and then also proceeded to let you know where we started, what we used, how we fished it, where we fished it, and everything. And you guys chose not to listen to it."
It's not good enough. Yeah.
But
gave them the juice.
Yeah, but it was the idea that we had extra fishing, and so we were just like, "All right, I didn't realize this was that competitive, just in family wise. I couldn't even imagine something with other people and just the craziness of all that."
So I ran into this really cool article where they were talking about you catching multiple 8-pounders in one day.
Yes.
Talk about that real quick.
So yeah, that was probably what changed my life that day. I was out of the country for a couple of weeks. I remember coming home, and the lake had come up like it did 25 years ago. It had come up like 50, 60 feet. So it's a brand new lake, and it was chocolate milk. And everyone had been going, all my buddies said, "Just don't bother. It's chocolate milk. You can't catch one." So I sat around for like a week, and I'm like, well, I just got to get some sun. So I remember trying to get Dave Hollenbeck to go, and he wouldn't. He's like, "No way." So I went. It was the weirdest thing. I remember idling out going, "Wow, this lake is crazy full." And I hadn't seen it like that in years. So I go, I remember one of these, this point up here, dog-legged. It's this big dog leg. I go, that'll be fun to fish. So I pulled up to there. I threw a hood over it, and it's chocolate milk, keep in mind. And I threw a hood over it, and I got bit. And it's a dunk, and I remember it just tapping, and you get a lot of those. And I remember this well. I brought it in, laid it down, picked up my Texas rig or my drop shot, and I remember loading it, going, "Wait a minute, what am I doing?" I remember this so well. And I'm like, "What am I doing?" And I put it down, picked up the hood, and made another cast, and I caught an 8-pounder. And I remember putting it in the well, calling Dave, and going, "I caught one." It was pretty early still. It was like 6:30. I'm like, "I got one." And he was like, "Oh, you fucker." I'm like, "Yeah, you should have come." So,
And mind you, Dave's probably thinking that's the only one you're going to get that day.
Absolutely. So I hang up the phone. I go to the front, make another cast, and I catch a 10-pounder. So I call him
A
back.
10-pounder.
10-pounder. And I call him back, and I go, I just got a 10. And he's like, fucker. I'm fuck. He hangs up. So I sort myself out, go back to the front, make another cast. I get a 12-pounder. So,
dude, you're 12-pounder now.
Now it's a 12. So I call him up, and I go, dude. And he goes, I'm hooking the boat up. I don't want to hear it. And I'm like, so he, long story, I sat in the front and I caught 10 total. And they were all over 10 pounds, between 10 and 12 pounds after that first 8-pounder.
Oh my gosh.
Now my well's full. Dave's on the way. So I call Ken Huddleston. I sit down cross-legged on the bow and I call Ken. And I go, Ken, I just caught 10 hudfish. He's like, oh my God. He's like, what did it just, that was it? And I'm like, no, I haven't even made 11 casts yet. I just caught 10 and 10 casts. And he's like, why'd you stop? And I go, because my well's full. I want to keep all these. and I want pictures. And so I gotta wait for Dave. And he goes, well, what's your smallest? I go, I got like an 8. And he goes, well, call that fucker. So I go, he's like, I want to hear this. So I go, all right. So I put him on speaker. I make a cast and I catch another 12.
Oh my gosh.
And so then I call the 8 and Dave pulls up and I'm like, here, Dave, get in here. So Dave pulls up, he makes the cast, he gets a 10. And I'm like, now you're fired. Get out of here.
They were stacked. They were stacked, man.
Dude, it was insane. So then I pull back in and it's wherever we're at now. So 10. Anyway, long story short, I caught 27 over 10 pounds in consecutive casts.
Look at Luke's face. He came in close. He came in close.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Oh my gosh. I thought it was going to be like 4 8-pounders, man.
No, it was 27 over, 1/8. The rest were 10 to 12. My limit was 58 pounds for 5.
Oh my God.
Gosh.
And so then what I do? So then I came back the next morning with so at that point I called anyone I knew to see if anyone had a camera. No one has GoPro isn't invented. No one has cameras. We don't have cameras on our phones even. So we just have those flip phones. So I ran straight to Best Buy and buy a handy cam. And then I don't want to show anyone, so I get my mom. I bring my mom.
That's cool.
But she's filming it and she's so excited. She's turning it off to film, and then when I catch the fish and put it in the well, she turns it on. So we just got a bunch of footage of the carpet.
She's doing it opposite.
So that was a bummer the next day because we caught him pretty good, and then that spot got popular, and I could never get back on it. It was over, and it burned out. You could catch one maybe in the morning, a good one, but it burned out. It was too community after that. But then it wasn't 3 weeks later. We had a tournament, and I just pulled up to another point and fired over, and we caught 11 in a row, and we set the record for one bass in that tournament for team tournaments.
Goodness gracious.
So yeah, it was the good old days of HUDs. It was so exciting back then because no one was doing it. Nobody really.
So earlier you said fast HUD and slow HUD. What's the difference in those?
We got a 5 and a 12. Actually, make a 16 as well. So the 5 is, they call it 5, 12, 16. The 5 is very, very slow sink. So I can fish it in 1 to 5 foot of water very comfortably, and it's my favorite bait. That's my favorite bait. And then the 12, I say the 12 is my most successful bait ever of all time because that's a bottom grinding thing. But I think the 5 is a little bit funner. I don't know. It's a tough one. I love deep dome. But the 12 HUD is.
I felt that in the soul, by the way. I felt that.
But the
Dude,
12,
that's the best part.
You're right. It is. The bite. But yeah, the 12 is my most damage done bait in the world. It is for sure. There was one year with a punker. So that's a whole nother story. That was they changed the rules on team tournaments where you could cast over buoy lines. They never were allowed to before. And if you've been to Casitas the old days, there used to be a spot over the buoy line called the saddle. If you were ever having a bad day and you wanted to break the rules and go over that buoy line about 50 yards, you will catch 1, 2, 3, or 10, depending how long you want to stay there and get a ticket. If you get caught. but it's magical. So they changed the rules that you can cast over buoy lines. I'm like, what can I cast that far? So I got online and started looking at musky baits, and I found Lunker Punker. I found this picture of it. They were brand new. So I called, hey, those cast really well? And he goes, oh yeah, they're butt heavy. They cast great. I said, I want one. And he goes, oh, well, we haven't even opened the business yet. I just have my prototype. And I go, oh, okay. And I go, can I put my name on a list? He goes, sure. So I give him my name. He goes, oh, Matt Newman, the swim bait guy. I'll send you my prototype.
Two.
Where is it? Okay, oh, it's in my boat. So he gives me this prototype, and I go to the lake. I go straight to the tournament. I didn't even pre-fish with it. And in the morning, there was a south wind, so I couldn't cast. It didn't work. But I came back at noon.
Oh, yeah, because it was coming towards you?
Yep. But I came back at noon, and the little bit of wind helped, and I got right over there and clobbered him. And after that tournament, I mean, we're doing 44 pounds we did in one tournament. So after that tournament, it was me, Mike Breakbill, Justin Kerr, Doug Rhea, and then the Baileys. So there was 5 boats on any given day that knew about the bait. There was nobody on the lake. It was June, so the tournaments were over. There was no one on the lake. God's gospel truth. For 30 days, each boat could catch 10 to 15 fish over 10 pounds a day on it.
Oh
so
my
that's
God.
50 fish a day over 8-10 pounds on that bait. I can't catch a fish on it now.
They don't bite it no more.
But no, there's not a fish alive that saw it. That's my complaint. I was like, there's not a fish in this lake that's ever seen this punker like the way we threw it. So and there's all. I think it's just a combination of like you said. The lake was dropping, and it was the last brush. There was the last brush line was starting to get exposed, and the fish were just starting to suspend. I think, and we clobbered them.
So down the
Capitalizing
road here,
on
you
it.
might get that opportunity again.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we've talked about this. I think with the lake where it's at, when it starts to drop, and I'm not looking forward to that, but when it starts to drop, I think the lake will have cycled up, and then it depends how low it gets. That will happen again. It'll happen. It'll set them up because we weren't fishing like how you think. We were fishing over 60 foot of water. 100 yards off of land, and fishing these things aggressively.
That's insane to think about.
Massive schools of 10-pounders. If you watch like the Big Bait Posse, we had that video finished with Hudfish, and then that punker bite started, and we had to re-edit the whole thing because the bites were so bad on that punker. So most of that stuff in that video was punker. Most of it. There was a lot of triple Hudfish, but there was a lot of it was all that punker bite.
What's your biggest green bass? Like, what's your PV?
Well, my personal best is 14. It frustrates me. I have had a client that I casted the bait, and it was a floater. I twitched it and handed it to him, and then it blew up, and that was a 17.
Oh,
that will forever be that guy's personal best, by the way.
Oh yeah, mine too. Biggest fish I've ever
Was it long?
No, yeah, it was huge. I mean, I knew it as soon as I got color. I got ill. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm sitting there with a net. I'm like, my knees are shaking. I was excited. But yeah, I'd never touched anything like that. And then Paul went out, or was it Paul? Yeah, Paul went out, a week later and got a 16. And then I had my biggest heartbreak story was a bedfish that I posted up on. And I swear it was that 18 range. I've caught so many 10 to 12s on beds, and this was different. And I spent 10 hours on this fish, and everyone everybody knew what I was doing, and they kept checking in, calling me any closer. And I got this fish now to where I could sit in the cove and it would come back to the bed. As soon as I'd lift my rod, it would leave. Then I would get it to where I could lift the rod. It took me hours. Then I could get it to where I could pitch without it leaving. Then I got it to where it wouldn't leave when it was on the bed. It was hours and hours to break her in. And I always remember Dave called, and he goes, how close? I go, I think it's next cast. She's starting to spin on the bait. And he goes, what rod are you using? And I go, it's just my 12-pound bed rod. And he's like, oh, you're crazy, dude. You should bust out the braid on this one. I'm like, oh, okay. So I grab a braid rod and I just tie a sinker and a hook. I pitch it in there and she eats it and I set the hook. And that's when I learned that braid slips.
Oh,
I've had that happen to me before.
Dude, and she
The
wore
knot.
that. She
The
wore
knot.
that.
I don't.
Yeah, you have to do an improved trilene.
Yeah.
Oh, you went straight braid.
I went straight braid and I did a trilene knot without improving it. Trilene knots are one of the strongest knots there is. So you don't have to improve it.
Yeah.
But in braid, you do. And, we have to go through the second loop. That's what they call it, improving.
Mhm.
So I could feel it. Just went and slipped out. And she was like, fuck you. And she wore that jig. I kept coming back every day. And that white grub was sitting on the corner of her mouth for 3 days before she disappeared.
Is that what the white grub story is?
What I don't know about what's this. I don't know. What's the white grub
Oh,
story?
there's a story that you guys were talking about on Cast and Crank about the white grub.
So,
And I wasn't going to bring it up, but then you mentioned the white grub, and I was like, "Oh, this might be a good time to bring it up."
No, that was oh god. So me
Dude,
and
that's
Sean,
insane.
all right. So me and Sean got paired up in a tournament to fish together. And it was like a club tournament, but it paired us up, and it was it was out of town, so it was a 2-day job. And so we pre-fished for it as we did, and we blanked. We blanked in 2 days of practice. And it was so bad that it was a launch and go. So we're like, well, that's how the club tournaments go, just launch and go. There's no official launch. And so we were like, well, there's no one said you couldn't launch at 4. The gates open. We launched at 4. I'm giving the whole story here. Never caught fish. So finally at like 11 o'clock, Sean starts talking shit about this bait that his brother had borrowed his rod, and he had tied on this blue and bright yellow crankbait. And he's like, I just don't know why he would tie that on. And we were fishing jigs and worms on point. So we're like speeding on trolling motor point to point. So as I'm crossing over, he picks it up, he throws it out, and he catches a 6-pounder. Long story short, we figured out that was the bite, and we came in with both of us had like 22 pounds, which was massive for the tournament. But
on crankbaits?
Yeah, on crankbaits. But we were such idiots back then. We're like, dude, the people could figure it out. They might beat us. So we took a bunch of white grubs and we ripped them up and sprinkled them around the boat. So it looked like because of course everyone comes around your boat when you come in. Everyone surrounds it and they pretend they want to talk to you about dinner and stuff, but all they're doing is perfect.
Yeah.
So
they're just looking at what you threw.
Dude, we were so dumb, but it was fun. We put all our crank rods away and we put Texas rods out. And then just ripped up white grubs, and everyone's looking around, looking at each other, going, the next day, everyone's just bolted to the bank, looking down the bank.
Oh, man.
We were young and dumb, but it was the fun years, when you think you're onto something so cool. The world came down.
Dude, that's
the white grub story. Always trying to throw people off the
well, many stories, man. I can imagine you have many more, man.
Millions. Yeah, I mean, I told that story about Sean's crash. You heard that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then somebody said, now I'm trying to remember it now. I told Sean that. I go, hey, Sean, I told your story. And he goes, did you tell this one? I go, oh, fuck, that'd have been a good one. I'm trying to think what it was now. Me and Sean have had so many crazy moments together. There's too many, but yeah, that's lots of stories.
Shoot, we're gonna have to have you on because it's like we haven't even touched upon saltwater, and I know you've done a lot of saltwater just throughout the whole year, so that's always fun to hear.
Yeah, now that's become my real drug right now is the tuna. But it's the adventure that goes with it, I think. I mean, I love the lake, and it's become now my actual. Before it was my. I'm gonna say this weird, but the lake became your place of work, so it became a little stressful. Like, oh fuck, I really have to catch them. And now the lake to me is like I find myself sitting down and just hanging a worm over the side. I'm happy and relaxed. It's nice. It's my play place. But the ocean is what. Yeah, it keeps me with butterflies.
Yeah, Gary said it's almost time.
Yeah, but Charlie doesn't like tuna.
Gary,
it's almost time.
Oh gosh, dude, it's the tuna's fun. I mean, I love pulling on these things, and I love getting scared. Like when they you get a bite, you're begging for a bite, you finally get a bite. With a bass, you turn the handle 6 times and swing it in. With a tuna on it, you're like, oh, this is going to be
you're just holding it there, chew on it, eat on it.
Yeah, and you know now that you've got an hour or 2 hours of just ass kick, and so your stomach, so it's
insanity.
It is, and and that's what it drives me. And then more importantly, though, is, and I say this ultimately about all fishing, is fishing has become, and I'm one guy that fished by myself 300 days a year. Fishing has become all who you fish with now. I don't like fishing alone, and I pick who I want to fish with, and that makes the day. That makes I don't have to catch a fish. I like who did I
hanging out.
With? My buddy Lance and I went out last Tuesday. He's an old surf friend of mine, and we finally reconnected, and we never caught a keeper. And we ended up hugging, going, that was such a rad day, such a fun day. Because it's all about the conversation and who you're with. And that's solely what fishing is to me. And then when I go tuna fishing, you're stuck now with those guys in the boat. It's usually 2-3 of us in the boat for 2 days. We usually go out for 2 days. I love the camp overnight trips. And then there's like 5 other boats of us. There's like a whole group of us that all go out together. We share bait, we share batteries, we share info, we share everything. Dude, burgers, you're out of gas, my barbecue, here you go. And it's that whole, and then you're 80 miles offshore in the middle of the ocean, but you've got your city, your bros right there. It's really cool. It's just a different deal, it's just
Luke said this a couple times, it's different when you're alone to when you're with and it has to be a certain crowd, right? Some people
Oh, I don't. I'm very weird who I fish with. And people ask me all the time, and I go, "Man, I'm not going to lead you on. I probably won't take you." And people hate me for it. And I've said it to my neighbor recently. He said, "When are you taking me?" I'm like, to be honest, I probably won't take you because we're sleeping in a little boat, and these are like my best friends. Like it's pretty intimate, Yeah.
And there's also the I don't want to take someone out and I don't want to take you out and teach you.
Yeah, thank you.
I've got. let me phrase this. Now that I'm a captain, if you've never done this before, book a trip. I want to teach you.
Well, I don't.
If it's my day off, and my neighbor from down the street wants to go and learn how to fish calico, it's like. Learn how to fish spotties, and then you could come out and fish calico.
I want to catch them too bad. I don't have time to. Yeah, exactly. I want to catch them.
I don't want to be picking your braid out. I don't want to be picking your line out because you backlashed.
And again, if you've never done this before and you want to book a trip with me, I want to pick your braid out all day. I will pick your braid out. I'll throw a cast for you.
I was a guide for 6 years, and I hated it with a it killed my soul. That's how much I hated it, because you're with strangers every day that half of them didn't speak English either, and it's very lonely. I
love seeing someone get on a big fish for the first time. I've got to do that a lot.
That's my high. Yeah,
I've got to do that. I've got to see a lot of people get their PBs on my boat. And it's so cool. It's so cool to see that shock. That's because you don't get to see your own shock when you get the PB.
Yeah,
but you don't see their shock.
Me and Luke fished a couple of times, and it's been some emotional times on the boat, right? We're buddies, So
yeah,
man, we're hugging, and it's like shit,
oh yeah, and I'm up and down in moods too. If we've lost 3 in a row, I'm foul. But the people that I fish with don't take it personally. They go, "Oh, Matt's in a bad mood. Things are gonna happen," and it's. So I have to be with people that understand. I'm a spaz. I get way excited and way emotional and way sad sometimes too.
We were out fishing, and we had Nick from SoCal Fishing Squad with us, and Charlie had caught something the day before on a bait from the fish players called Espetite, and he got super stoked and he went Espetite. The next trip, every fish we caught, we were screaming out Espetite.
Yeah.
Charlie's like, "Are you guys gonna do that? Are you guys gonna do that the whole trip?" We're like, "The whole trip."
You get drunk, right? You get drunk with happiness.
Man,
you say the stupidest shit. What the catchphrase is.
fishing, like I get excited for everything, man. Like everything excites me, right? Like any hookup, anything excites me about fishing. And Luke says I get mad when I don't catch. I don't think I do, but he says I do.
I get disappointed, but the ocean doesn't bum me out so much because
man, I love being out, man. Like
the adventures
regardless of what kind of day it is,
Yep.
There's
one of the best feelings is when you're dehydrated, you're sun-beaten, weathered, your lack of sleep, everything in your body is malfunctioning. But you're there with good company, and they're also on the same level of just delusion. And you're like, next cast, this. And you're just looking at each other like, what are we doing? You're also slightly hallucinating a little bit just from just tiredness. But you're crying laughing. Because you thought you hooked up into a 5-pounder. You thought you hooked up into a good one, but it's a log or something, and it's the last straw. It's the straw that broke the camel's back, but you both are just crying laughing because there's no other emotion on the boat.
Nick said, "Not really. We fish at night."
Right? We don't get dehydrated. We got plenty to drink on the boat. It's awesome.
Dude,
but there's this thing, right? There's this thing where if you're fishing inside the break wall, it's a lot like fishing a lake. It's more mellow in there. We get some wind, we're going to get wind chop, right? But you get to the outside of the wall, and that swell's pushing into the wall, and it's banging off the wall. Or even if you go up into PV or what, it's like the further you go, the more wild it becomes. The less you're on the road, and the more you're in like the Serengeti version of the ocean, where it's just it's completely feral, and you've taken your Jeep off road. In the Sahara,
This last Friday we hit a weird tide. It was like, what is it, it was coming in weird.
Oh, it was a mixed swell, so it was hitting us from behind, and then the occasional one would hit us from the side, so you'd kind of get this like you were unsteady.
Dude, but we're having a good time. Nobody was worried. We're not like, oh man, this is bad. No, everybody's just casting.
You're giggling, you fall over and you laugh, and your buddy laughs.
Well, it's also like
I know it so well.
When you get to that point where it's the edge of what's fishable still, they go wild sometimes. They go wild, and and then you're going wild.
And then Luke's a risky. He likes fishing close, right? So. Close to the wall, you're seeing the wall, not like where you're against the wall, but so
you're already slightly fearful.
You're like,
you can see the detail on the wall.
You're counting the crabs on the break wall. Oh wow! Man, I can see the green dots on that one.
He's got one blue claw. Look at that.
Yeah, look at the feathers on that pelican sleeping there.
It's very hard to get bored with the ocean.
Yeah, it is.
The ocean's constantly in flux.
And there's so much stuff. I see different things. I saw my first. We were coming home from Catalina this fall, and I saw my first bait ball with like 8 marlin just circling it. I'm like, what? This is like out of a movie. I'm like, what the?
I haven't got to see that yet.
It's my first time in thousands of trips. I mean, I don't go to Cabo that much, so. Seeing that at Cat, we were just off the west end of Cat, and there was just marlin spinning around this bait ball, taking shots on it with their sails up and stuff. You're like,
dude,
what the fuck? Like you just.
I'll never forget. There was a gray whale in the harbor. It was Fred Hall. It was Fred Hall. It was that specific show you were talking about that year.
Okay. Yep.
And I went to Fred Hall. The next day, I went out to Cabrillo to check out my new baits, and we're in the harbor. Still in the inner harbor, and there's a gray whale in there. And so we've got the trolling motor down, and we're kind of close to it. And the lifeguards come over, and they see that we have the trolling motor down, and they wave us like, "Get closer," which I thought they were going to be telling us to get away from it because you're supposed. Yeah. And I go, okay, so we motor over to this thing on the trolling motor, and it came up. It saw us, and then came up to us, and came about 2 feet from the boat.
Dude.
Rolled its head up. And I watched it look at my buddy, make contact with him, look at me, make eye contact with me, and then just swim away. And it's like, This thing's, twice the size of the boat. Where are you going to see something like that?
Isn't that crazy? And you guys are having like eyeball to eyeball moment. Like,
eyeball to eyeball, and then with my buddy, and then you see the eyeball shift because it's an eyeball.
Yeah.
Look right at me and just kind of be like, all right, cool.
All
Went
right.
on his way.
Sometimes I wonder if they're like trapped souls trapped in whales. Like, why do killer whales are so cool? Why won't they ever attack humans? It's so bizarre. That trips me out. Killer whales. I mean,
brilliant creatures.
Why
Absolutely
won't they just?
next level intelligence.
Not one of them has said, "I'm going to take a nip at this guy."
They've had these ones attacking boats in the Mediterranean
in Italy,
lately.
Yeah. Yep.
So they've been researching it. Why are they attacking them? Are they messing with their breeding patterns? Are they messing with their food source? What's causing this? They've come to the conclusion that they've all been adolescents just making trouble.
Yeah, just
It hasn't been like a full adult. It's been like teenage males.
Wow. It's like us as teenagers, right? Starting fires.
Groups of adolescent males just causing some trouble.
But to that, I watched a documentary on that, and they said that the matriarch was teaching them how to hit the rudder. So there was the big female was teaching them to hit the rudder.
But was that the ones that were also stealing catches?
That what?
Was that the ones that were doing it to fishermen and stealing the catches?
No, but they were saying that maybe the reason that they were doing this is because maybe a fisherman had shot a whale in retaliation for that.
Oh, gotcha.
And so
they were saying this group that's been doing it lately is just a bunch of teenagers.
It's scary because can you imagine if that happened on SoCal?
Right.
That changes the whole game now. All of a sudden, like if you're out there and there's a sea monster out there that wants to bash your boat.
Yep.
I'm in a 23-footer.
There's a lot of kayakers too.
Mm-hmm.
Like first off, there's a bunch of paddle boarders that go out past the harbor, do their races and all that stuff, which are 3 foot wide, filled with 5 people. That's a snack right there. That's a full meal.
Mm-hmm.
You got all 5 of them out and just pick them
there
off.
goes my chance
Sounds
of getting
delicious.
a paddleboard. Just saying.
Yeah, some lean meat right there.
No more paddleboard videos in the future. But
I'm afraid of those sharks. Too many sharks out there.
All right, we're like 20 minutes over right now, guys.
Super fun conversation. So Matt, man, thank you very much for hopping on. I think we're gonna have to have you on again, man.
I'd love to. That'd be awesome.
I'm going to go ahead and plug this now. We have a new series coming out called Food Legends and Fish Tales. We're not going to have you on again. We're going to have you on that.
Awesome.
Dude, that
one's a little bit more fun because it is in person. Round table it with food.
Are we going to be seeing that come out this weekend, Charlie, or is that next weekend?
This weekend. Our first one is going to be with Matt Florentino. So, Matt, thanks a lot for coming out. But it's going to be Matt Newman soon.
That sounds fun. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, so we'll just go, choose a place you like to eat, and we'll meet you there, and we'll chat it up, man.
Deal.
It was fun,
awesome.
It was fun.
Really good. I love rehashing some of the old stories too. It makes me remember.
Matt, where can we find
You're a Ventura guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in Thousand Oaks.
We're gonna have to meet you at Johnny's Tacos.
Johnny's Tacos.
It's the spot with the bullet holes in the windows.
I don't even know. I don't know.
We're fishermen. All we know is the ocean.
We ate twice.
And like water.
We ate twice there.
I ate there 3 times in the Ventura show.
I ate twice.
That's awesome.
But
yeah, Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys.
I know Daniel said, but let's repeat. Where can we find iRod? Where are you currently in now?
God, I mean, we're really trying to be in every dealer in Southern California. Obviously, all the way across the whole country, but Southern California, I hate to miss many stores.
I think everyone's got them.
There's a few stores, but we all the big ones and the landings. I don't even know where to start because it was all your big
tackle
stores.
Shop's a cool tackle shop. They probably got iRod.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, and yeah, that's it. The support has been unbelievable, especially the last 2 years for the saltwater stuff. It's really being embraced, and it's been really fun to just keep growing that line as well. Based on a local.
We didn't even jump into the Caesar rod and all that.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that could be its own
that's gonna be for the
story.
live. That's gonna be for
I
the
know,
live.
I know.
Let's say we'll
I
say that
know.
one. Is that
I'm just saying, there's so much to talk about. We'll have to get you, back on and on and stuff.
awesome.
All right,
right,
Charlie,
thank you,
send us
Luke.
out.
Thank you guys. I appreciate
We lost
it.
Luke, but guys, thank you guys for jumping on. Matt, thanks a lot for hopping on. We appreciate you. We'll see you soon for that live. But guys, thanks a lot. We love you, and most of all, what fuels it all is our love for fishing. Thank you guys for
All right,
hopping
love
on.
you guys.
Peace.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye.